First of all, I'm here because I was invited, but more seriously, I head our work on health and agriculture at Pepsico, and we increasingly recognize that long-term, our supply chain in terms of food and agriculture is becoming threatened by major changes in the environment. One of the things we've been doing over the last few years is trying to spell out a number of very specific goals and commitments we need to take to address human health and environmental sustainability. So over the last year, we've gone public with a range of goals to reduce water use, to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in our agricultural production, as well as in our general manufacturing, as well as to try and diversify the source of crops that we use in our food products worldwide. On the health side, we also are aiming to try and reduce undernutrition with a number of projects now underway from India to Ethiopia to Nigeria. And again, based upon the belief that we will have to have a more diversified set of agricultural crops that are going to give a more diversified diet if we actually want to give people sustained improvements in health long term. I think we've seen a lot of progress over the last year, particularly on concerns about food price volatility, which has driven people to take often short-term solutions, looking at how they're going to promote better production on the land, without asking the bigger question of what happens 20, 30, 40 years from now when entire ecosystems could be threatened and are being threatened, and our viability to use what we're currently doing now, which is basically basing our entire agricultural and food supply on a few staples, can run us into very deep problems. So I think this meeting, raising as it will the issue of ecosystem services, will allow us to take a longer-term perspective, and hopefully companies like ourselves and governments will realize that one has to simultaneously work to address hunger today while doing so in a way in which you don't threaten long-term security of the food supply and the agricultural supply. What's happening is that the quality of the science and the data is now beyond reproach. I also see it's causing a stimulation of activity between the private and the public sector and the major UN agencies. For example, the World Economic Forum has been working very hard to define a new vision for agriculture that brings together work on the agriculture side, the environment side, and human health, recognizing that unless we tackle all three simultaneously, we're going to run into serious problems, or are currently running into serious problems. But some of the changes required are deep, structural, and they strike at the heart of how we live our lives, what kind of foods we like, how we grow our cities, how we put emphasis on the values of transport and energy. And so they're going to require some pretty tough choices, and I'm hoping to learn from this meeting where the current thinking is on some of these issues. Well, I don't think, I'm from South Africa, and I just came back earlier this year from a meeting which was almost the opposite to what you're saying. Very positive, recognizing that the potential for improving agricultural productivity, smallholder farmers, and the environment actually exists if we actually do it in a sensible way and go back to some tried and tested principles. But you are right that the current demand for certain products, particularly livestock, meat, a range of biofuels, is pushing us deeper and deeper into forests, and what we often hear as being called sustainable forestry practices, I don't think are sustainable. And it will require us to make some pretty serious choices. I think early on in this meeting, one of the fundamental issues will be how do we price these products and these commodities? How do we make more visible the costs of carbon, the costs of water, and the costs of greenhouse gases? If they were built into the structure of how we pay for commodities and pay for our products, I think we would start being able to correct the balance. Absolutely. I think what we've had is a set of people who've driven the balance sheet of companies by the financial profits alone, and everything, all the externalities have been ignored. When we start building in the true cost of water, for example, we find that you will make decisions very differently about what crops you grow, where you grow the crops, how you value the riparian rights of people upstream. Pepsico has taken the decision to support the right to water and turn into positive balance, water balance worldwide. And so that simple act has stimulated extraordinary innovation across the company. Suddenly we see ourselves in the business of trying to reduce the water runoff in the rice paddies of India by improving agricultural growing, by using direct seeding, a 40% saving on water. The reason we're doing it is twofold. One, it's going to be, of course, a benefit to the environment long term, and we have to operate in that environment, so it serves us. But of course, it has an enormous social value as well. And that social value is also being translated by the investment community into which companies they want to value. I would hope that as companies start making some of these changes, they will also be given far greater credit for making the changes. Otherwise, we're going to have the free riders coming along and making no changes, selling products at much lower cost with very heavy environmental footprints. And that, again, is something that I think will be discussed in this meeting. It's first a strange background for this sort of meeting. As I say, background in medicine, public health, now moving into agriculture and the environment, and why I think that transition is something that we want other people to make, coming together around the commonality of that if the ecosystem collapses, we're all gone. Secondly, some of the expertise that I've learned inside a corporation, where there are extraordinary capabilities that could be brought to the bear in the public sector world. The way we actually, if given a problem, define very crisply, do go about and solve it and try and address it in pragmatic ways. The debates end once the decision is made to act. I've seen it once our decision was made on reducing water, reducing greenhouse gases, changing our waste programs. They looked for the engineering and the other solutions to do it, and we're simply getting on with it. I think that sense of how you bring corporate capabilities with the right incentives is something that the public sector desperately needs.